How to prepare for the next recession. This is the topic of today's video. Hello and welcome. My name is Peter B. and I welcome you here at My First Million, where we are achieving our financial goals together. So why we need to even worry about the recession? When it really comes down to worrying about recession, then it's basically worrying about money. So what we want to be really prepared for when it comes to a recession, that we get our financial situation to a state as well as possible. So for this, let me change to my whiteboard. When it comes to finance and your personal situation, all you need to know or really need to care about is the very fundamentals of personal finance. The wealth cycle. So basically the wealth cycle is covering 4 areas. You have your earnings, you subtract your spendings from your earnings, then you will get your savings, and then you can use your savings to invest. And if you're able to generate a positive rate of return, your investings will then further improve your earnings. So these are the basics that we need to understand for winning financially. So now, considering in a recession, we want to make sure that we are ensuring and improving the situation as well as possible. Because what could happen, what are the worries in a recession, is that something here can break. And basically, usually it's 2 things that can break. Either maybe someone loses a job and doesn't have any income anymore, or the investments are not running very properly. But for each area, we can do some improvements. So let's start out with earnings. When you worry about recession, prepare and optimize and improve your situation for your income. So basically there are 2 categories that you want to consider and start thinking about it already now. The first of course is your main income. Most of us, just like myself, are employed, and therefore this is maybe the main area that we should be considering in a current situation. So in general, I would suggest everyone who is employed be a high performer and valuable to your employer. Usually most of the companies, even though maybe they will get hit from the recession and maybe will also suffer in a recession, most companies will still survive a recession. So, but it could be that a company need to cut back, maybe cut back on expenses, cut back on even its workforce. And that's how maybe many people are losing their jobs during a recession. So when you're trying to be a high performer, or if you're a high performer, you become a very valuable asset for your company. So they will think twice or even 3 times before they would cut down your position. So make sure that whatever you're doing is valuable for the company. But not only valuable, but also people within your organization, in your direct reporting lines, but maybe also across departments that you are regarded as a very valuable employee for the company. So when it comes down to cut back, they would rather prefer to keep you in the company. Then still, of course, there's no guarantee that in a recession or when a company needs to restructure, that you will be able to keep your job. So maybe now it's already time to update your CV. This gives you 2 positive inputs there. One, in case if someone would be losing a job, you would already be ready to reapplying for a next position as soon as possible because your CV is already up to date. And more importantly, if you're updating your CV, you will realize that maybe you have some gaps, some gaps that you need to be closing. And this leads me to point 3 already. Maybe your skill sets need to be updated in order for you to be valuable in the job market. Maybe you're lacking on some specific skill sets that maybe other companies would require if you would want to work in another company for a similar position. Maybe need to get additional trainings or something else to take into consideration? And if so, maybe you can already work on those skill sets just as soon as possible and fill those gaps. Then also one additional hint, if you worry about an upcoming recession, get in touch with your network. Not about job opportunities now, but just say hi, and talk to them. That you maybe just reach out to them, like telling them, long time no see, just want to check in with you if everything is going well. Because you don't want to just reach out to them when you need the help and in case you have just lost your job and are looking for a new opportunity. It's always better to keep in touch first on a positive note, and then once in need of help, you can come back to other previous discussions or previous conversations. Then besides your main income, if you feel like you already optimize there whatever you can, also consider maybe having additional income streams coming in. You could start a side hustle or put more efforts into side hustles, or maybe get a second job during the evenings or weekends. Especially a second job could be a very valuable consideration if you want to improve your financial situation quickly in a short period of time. Because basically everything what you earn in evening or weekend, besides maybe taxes and some other deductibles, will straight go to the bottom of your savings, and therefore you can improve our cash cushion as soon as possible. So take these additional income streams into consideration without at the same time anything jeopardizing on your main income. So this is one area that you can improve. So you have the earnings here, coming back to the wealth cycles. You have the earnings, what you can do here for improving and getting ready for a recession. Then the second thing that maybe you already want to also covering is then the spendings. What can you do on the spending side in order to be prepared for a recession? If you worry about a recession, maybe it's already now immediately time to cut off the fat, so to speak, right now. This means basically reducing all the unnecessary expenses that you're having. This could be done, for instance, you could review all the discretionary expense and consider maybe to cancel it or to delay it. Maybe there are some expenses like a subscription that you don't really need to have, so you can cancel it now. Or maybe you want to go for a nice vacation. You already know the next vacation where you want to head to. But if you worry about the upcoming recession and about your financial situation, maybe it's better to hold off and wait for another year or two until the situation gets more stable. Generally speaking, when it comes down to discretionary expense, just ask yourself the question, do I really need it? And if the answer is not, then maybe it's better to cut it off or to delay it and come back to it later once you feel like you're in a more stable situation. Then also, now maybe if you're already in a worrisome position, now it's maybe the best time to get rid of bad expensive habits. For instance, this could be smoking. Maybe if you worry about your financial situation now, this might be the additional motivator for you that you need to get out of a bad habit that also attaches some expenses to it. Then also review all the subscriptions and what I already mentioned before, vacations. Do you need them, or can you postpone them to later? Also, like gifts or presents. Like for instance, if you are afraid of a more hard time next year, maybe the gift for this year's Christmas could be a little bit less expensive than it used to be. Or maybe they could be more personal and less financial. Maybe do a family trip together. Go outside to do something with your family instead of having an additional expensive purchase. Then also always it makes sense to review your big three. And especially this is if you still have time before you go into a recession. And the big three are covering housing, transportation, and food. So housing is of course your apartment, is the living situation where you're in. Is that what you need? And does it cover your needs? Or maybe you're living in a too big apartment. Or maybe it's possible for you to live in a cheaper area or like a more, less expensive area and still have the same standard of living. For transportation, also consider, for instance, do you need a new car now, or should you wait for a little bit longer? Or similar considerations like this. How can you optimize your mode of transportation? For food, maybe it's now time to go out a little bit less often and cook by yourself, learn some recipes, so that you can also have some savings and cutbacks on your expenses there. Then also review all your insurances. For me, in general, I would only insure things that would give a substantial hit back in my financial situation, in my financial journey. Everything like a smaller insurances, I wouldn't get insured. For instance, I wouldn't never insure my smartphone, or I would never apply to a tire insurance. I should be able to pay those expenses or those things out of my emergency fund. So just consider, do you really need those insurances? If yes, for safety reasons, then of course keep them. But those you don't need, cancel them. And even those that you need, maybe it's also time to get some quotes from other insurance companies. Sometimes by switching the insurance companies, you can also get some significant savings out from insurances. Then an additional area for cutting expenses, of course, is the whole area related to clothing and fashion. Maybe you don't need to have the latest season's clothing this year, or follow the latest trends this year if you're already very worried about your financial situation, and cut back there a little bit as well. Then one good thing always, regardless whether or not to go into recession, is track your expenses so that you have a good understanding how much money is flowing out. If you know how much money is flowing out, then you know how much do you really need, and you get an additional sense of feeling whether you're in a relatively stable situation because you already have savings covered for it, or whether you need to be more aggressive in spending less and save more. And in general, for every expense, even for the essential expenses, ask yourself the question where it makes sense to delay the expense. Maybe you can say, okay, I don't need it now, or it's maybe better to wait a little bit longer and purchase it later. However, at the same time, also consider inflation there. Maybe if in periods with high inflation, just like now, maybe delaying for another year could mean that it will be also getting more expensive. So of course, it's always a trade-off there between saving more and having potentially need to spend more on the same item if you would delay later. If we are in an inflationary environment like now. So then coming back again to the wealth cycle. So now we already covered earnings, we already covered spendings. So let's take a look at savings. What can we do with the savings before or going into a recession? So in general, for savings, I would recommend, whenever you're worried, you feel financially insecure, the best thing you can do is improve your cash position as soon as possible. This will give you much more financial leeway and therefore provides much more security in your financial situation. The more cash you have, the safer you will be. So basically, for instance, a general saying is that an emergency fund should be able to cover 3 to 6 months of expense. So if you feel like we are in a situation where the economy is not going well in the short to mid-term future, and it's not easy to earn money during the upcoming time, then maybe you want to increase your emergency fund, maybe from 3 months to 6 months to the longer end, or maybe add even a little bit more than that, so that in cases that you would need, you have some income setbacks, you have more leeway there already that can be helping you to cover. Also, usually with a recession, there is a market downturn going along. The stock market is coming down, maybe also other investments opportunity are coming down, like real estate. So in the mid to short-term future, there might be more investment opportunities. So if you have more money put aside now, you can take advantage of those opportunities. Of course, now the market already has been going down. So for 2022. So the question will be then, will it go down even further or not, or we are already at the bottom? We will know in a few months or 1 or 2 years from now. But in advance, it's very hard to say. So, but in general, for savings, having a much bigger cash position will help us a lot. So then coming back to the wealth cycle, the last area to cover is investing. What to do for your investments. In general, when you worry about a recession or the economic state, just remind yourself of the following quote: be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. So if you have a lot of cash on your side, and you see everyone around you starting to panic because maybe the stock market is crashing, maybe the housing market is crashing, then maybe it's a time for you, if you have the possibility financially, to take a look into investments and take the opportunities as they come up. So now, every time when there's a recession, when the market is downtrending, it always has been a good opportunity for purchases, for new investments in the long run, if you have a long time horizons for your investments. So also, maybe it doesn't really make sense, just because of a potential upcoming recession, to completely change your overall investment strategy. But just review every investments that you are doing and your strategy that you're following, and consider how those investments might potentially be doing in a recession or in an economical downturn. And then maybe you want to make 1 or 2 or a few smaller tweaks to optimize your strategy, so that you can consider both, that maybe during the downturn you suffer a little bit less, and when the market is coming up again, when it finds its bottom coming up, so that you can still profit from improvements in the stock market or in all other markets that you are investing in. So, to finalize this video, how do you feel going into a potential recession? Do you feel safe and secure in the situation that you're currently in, or you have some worries? And if you have some worries, maybe it's time to just revisit the wealth cycle, revisit earnings, revisit your spendings, revisit your savings, and maybe also the emergency fund that you have with your savings, and just review your investments and see if you need to do any adjustments. In the end, you are the only one who can take the responsibility of your financial decisions. So you need to decide by yourself what's the best thing for you. But if you worry about this, of course, it's much better to be prepared rather than to be sorry later. So please share with us if you have any ideas in the comments below on what you are doing, maybe in addition to what I have covered in this video, what you can be doing for being prepared for a recession. I think there are a lot of additional things that I haven't even touched yet that people can be doing. I would be very glad to pick up your ideas and also learn from you as well. Thanks a lot for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you soon again in our next video, and especially I look forward to see you winning financially.